You've heard us talk about hormone therapy by Happy Mammoth many times by now. It's a supplement that helps women maintain optimal hormone levels with over 50,000 glowing reviews from women all over the globe. 98% say that they would recommend it to friends and family. And that's why we're recommending it to you. Now we can take those hormone harmony results even further by pairing it with Happy Mammoth's probiotic collagen protein. It helps restore gut lining integrity, promoting overall hormone balance. It also helps relieve occasional bloating, reduce sugar cravings, and helps you feel satisfied longer. Because your gut directly affects your hormones, improving gut health can amplify your hormone harmony results so you feel like yourself again. Happy Mammoth is dedicated to making women's lives easier, and that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. Right now, you can try prebiotic collagen protein and hormone harmony risk-free and get 15% off your entire order with code Murder Diaries at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code Murder Diaries for 15% off today.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
It's Halloween on Disney+. Watch frightful family favorites like Hocus Pocus and Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas on Disney+.
I am the Pumpkin King!
Then take the terror to 10 with a thrilling new remake of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Scream, and more with Halloween on Disney+. All these and more screaming this Halloween season with Hulu on Disney+. Bundle subscription required. 18+. Select Hulu content via Disney+. Additional content on Hulu app. Terms apply. Visit disneyplus.com/Hulu for details.
This week on the Murder Diaries, we speak with John Palmer, whose beloved wife's life was taken from her in a drunk driving incident. John, along with the rest of his friends, family, and community, are fighting for justice and accountability of the person responsible and those covering for him. Now, here's our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today, John. Do you mind introducing yourself for our listeners, who you are, where you're from, and what your relationship is to this case?
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you both for allowing me to come on and continue to tell Katie's story. My name is John Palmer. Currently live in Denison, Texas, from Dallas, Texas, and I am here to speak about my wife, Katie Palmer's death.
We'd love to know a little more about Katie. We'd love our listeners to know who she was. After all, she was so much more than the last day of her life. So with this in mind, will you tell us a little bit about Katie's background, where she's from, her job as a science teacher, how you met, your marriage, how many kids you have?
All of the good stuff.
I absolutely will. And it's just hard sometimes to always say was and were. But, again, that's why I'm here. I'm here to tell her story. So Katie was born and raised in Denison, Texas. Her mom lived here in Denison, and her dad, Tony, lived in Katy, Oklahoma, which is about 45 minutes away. Katie's best friend was her mom. She spoke to her mom daily. They ran around together, absolutely adored her mom. And she also spoke to her dad every single day. Said this numerous times, if there was any kind of bad weather or anything coming into the area, Katie, a lover of science, would always call her dad, and they would speak at length and just over and over again about weather patterns and if we're going to get rain and what type of rain and what the clouds look like. I met Katie at Austin College, which is a college just to the town south of us in Sherman, Texas. Katie was a biology major and I was an economics major. She lived in an apartment that was in the same complex, but across the parking lot. And my roommate was friends with her. And I'm very hard sometimes to pick up on clues, but she kept on locking herself out of her apartment. And couldn't figure it out. Everybody was gone and she'd always come over and say, hey, I've locked myself out of my apartment again. Can I wait here until my roommate gets home? And I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, like, this is crazy. Like, she's the most forgetful person ever. I told her numerous times, let's go ahead and make a spare key. You can go ahead and keep a spare key here. And next time you get locked out, like in the next 2 days, we'll just have it. You can, have an easy way to get into your apartment, not have to wait for your roommate. I remember when I said that, she kind of rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, I think my roommate's home." Looked out, roommate wasn't home. She had left, and one of my roommates finally said, "Hey, if you don't get this, she's trying to spend more time with you." And once that finally clicked, we got to know each other, and got to get to know her and realize what a special person she was. She was amazing. That word I think is used a lot, and I don't think there's meaning behind it when you say it all the time. But when I describe her, that word has a lot of weight and a lot of gravity. She was absolutely amazing, smart, extremely smart. Again, Austin College is a pre-med school, and she majored in biology. I mean, just an amazing brain. Loved science, loved nature, would rather be outside than inside, would rather be by a campfire, poking a stick at the fire, than inside watching TV or something that kept you indoors. She couldn't sit still indoors. We would have to go out and do something. She, again, loved nature. She was always at the wildlife refuge or was around her family, and I thought that was amazing. I graduated a year before she did. I moved to Dallas, and then we were going back and forth. I'd come up to see her. She'd come up to see me, and I ended up joining the military and proposed to her before I left. We started our married life in Gulfport, Mississippi, where I was stationed, and she was bouncing back and forth between Gulfport and Denison, Texas. I was deployed 3 times out of the 4 years that I was in, and she was a rock. I mean, so strong. During that time, we had our daughter Bella. I was stationed in Africa, and she went through the last 6 months of pregnancy without me. But of course, she was so tight knit with her family. She had all the support ever. Got to listen to Bella being born when I was deployed, and strength that Katie had in her voice. She was always in control. Such a strong woman, and I'm glad that I married a strong woman, because it set a great example for our daughter. And when my contract was up with the military, we moved back here to Denison. There's a funny story behind that. I was in Japan for 6-7 months prior to coming back and my contract expiring. And we were talking, and Katie informed me that she had bought a house. And she was back in Denison, and you could imagine that's quite a shock. I was an ocean away, and she informed me that she had bought a house, and I said, "What do you mean you bought a house?" And she said, "Well, my mom and I bought a house, and it's in Denison. It's a small house, and this is where we're going to live." And I had always had in my head that we'd move back to Dallas, where I'm from. I thought, bigger town, that's fine. We'll move to Dallas. We'll figure something out. And she told me, you've been gone 2.5 out of the 4 years that we've been married, and I want to be closer to my family. And Bella and I are going to be in Denison, and we'd love for you to come join us. And so couldn't argue with that. So we moved to Denison, and I guess I learned very early in our marriage that Katie definitely called the shots, but always made excellent decisions. And so we moved to Denison, loved it. This is where we wanted to raise our family. When the kids got old enough, Katie went back to teach. She ended up teaching at Scott Middle School. She taught science. She taught a STEM program, and said it many times. Katie, I think, got more out of teaching science than the kids did. And I mean, because she was an exceptional teacher, but she loved science. And I think when they did experiments, everybody always said, again, she had this loud laugh. And that's one of the things I miss the most. She was in it with them, loved it, was laughing, and enjoyed being around kids and enjoyed being a teacher and was very, very successful at it. She was Rookie Teacher of the Year. She was Teacher of the Year multiple times on her campus. And she was a great teacher, but always told me that her most important job was being a mom. And Katie loved Bella and Brandon. And that's who Katie was.
Thank you so much for sharing so much about Katie and your relationship with her with us. By April of 2020, you were back in Denison in that house that she found and bought for your family. And go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. Sorry. So we were at that house. We had moved twice since then. And so she found a house here that was close to her mom. So we're outside the city limits on the next street over. Perfect location outside the city limits, close to her mom, who, again, she ran with every single day. So she found the perfect spot for our family.
That's absolutely beautiful. And it seems like when I heard she was always in control, but it seems like it was with everybody she loved in mind.
Absolutely. And every decision that she made, she had our two kids in mind. I mean, she was a mom first, everything else second.
And unfortunately, in April of 2020, the world lost the beauty that Katie was. Can you take us back to that Tuesday, April 21st of 2020?
I can. So the night before, Katie and I talked. I told her I was going to get up and work out and walk in the morning. We've got a storage building behind our house where we have weights. And I'd go out there in the mornings, work out, and then most time I would go walk. And so she told me that she wanted to come. And Katie was not, she never got up to go walk with me early in the morning. And so that morning I got up, I went to go work out in that storage building. And I think I sent her a message or called her to see if she'd wake up. She didn't. I walked into the house, woke her up, said, "Hey, I'm going to go walk. Let's go ahead and go." And she said no. And then I reminded her, I said, "Hey, you told me that you wanted to go walking." And then, with the roll of the eyes, got up. Okay, let's go. Before we left, I let my son know that we were leaving. He would accompany me sometimes on these walks and runs. And very thankful that he didn't. Katie and I left approximately around 7:30 in the morning, walked down our driveway and headed west on Glenwood Drive. Glenwood Drive is where we live. It's approximately half a mile to 3/4 of a mile long, straight shot, dead end road. So it's just a country road that goes about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile in dead ends. So we set out heading west on Glenwood, and there's an old golf course a couple houses down. We would normally go walk there. There was some dew on the ground. This was during COVID. Katie was still teaching. She didn't have to log in to teach her students a couple hours. So she was going to go home and probably lay back down. She didn't want to get her legs wet. So we decided to keep on walking down the roadway. There were some undeveloped lots on Glenwood and Golf Walk Circle. And she was a big lover of science and nature. And there were some killdeer birds that were nesting on the ground. And she had seen them before because her and the kids would walk down that road, and then they would go to the golf course also and walk. There wasn't anybody playing golf on there anymore. And so there's a lot of, there was birds and squirrels and wildlife that they would take pictures of and look at. we stopped and we looked across those undeveloped lots, and this is towards the end of Glenwood, and nothing. So she said, hey, let's go ahead and turn around. So we started to head east on Glenwood, and we were walking alongside the road. And when we got roughly about halfway back to our house, that's when our neighbor, Cory Todd Foster, crossed over the roadway and hit us both from behind. He hit us so hard it knocked us out of our shoes. It threw us approximately, according to reports, 60, 70, 75 feet out into the golf course at an angle. It was odd because I'm walking with Katie, again, alongside the road. Next thing I know, I'm flying. I didn't feel the impact, but all of a sudden I was just moving at a high rate of speed, and I hit the ground and rolled. As I was in the air, I could see Cory's truck. So I must have been going the same speed as his truck. Landed, and I knew what had happened. I got on my hands and knees. I saw Katie, and she was propped up on her left elbow, and she was looking over me, and she let out this horrible moan, and I couldn't get up and walk to her. I felt like I had a ratchet around my sternum that was just getting tighter and tighter. And that's when I heard Cory say, oh my God, John, I didn't know it was you, which I thought was awkward and just odd and out of place. It was a weird statement. And then I started yelling for somebody to call the police, to call the cops. I crawled over to Katie and laid her down on her back. Noticed that she wasn't breathing. She was staring straight up. At this point, a neighbor had stopped and had gotten out, and she came to sit by Katie. Odd thing, that lady was with us that entire time. It took the paramedics and the fire department to get there. Must have been 5, 6, 7 minutes. I never once looked up and saw that lady. I just heard her voice. I was fixed on Katie the entire time. I'm begging Katie to breathe, and this neighbor just had this gentle voice and was saying everything was going to be fine. Begged for Katie to breathe, and then all of a sudden, she gasped for air and then started breathing about every 10 to 15 seconds, real short, labored breaths. And then I thought, man, everything's going to be fine, right? Because she's breathing. That's when I noticed her eyes. She wasn't blinking. She was staring straight up. She wasn't blinking. Tried to use my hands to see if I could get her to blink. I kept on shutting her eyelids, and nothing. They just popped right back open, and her eyes were fixed, and she was staring straight up. Like I said, it appeared like the fire department and the paramedics got there with, as fast as they possibly could. They got there, started to work on Katie, and I was laying next to her. I heard them talking. I heard somebody talk about a helicopter, and then they asked me if I had gotten hit, and I said yes. They put me on a gurney. They loaded me up in the back of an ambulance, and that's the last time I saw Katie that day.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. I can't, I'm sitting here hearing you, and it's such a horrific scene. And you've said a lot of things I haven't been able to find online. I didn't realize that Cory was your neighbor, number one. Number two, the image of you guys flying out of your shoes is gut-wrenching. My husband's a paramedic, and he has told me, that happens a lot. But to hear someone that's actually experienced flying out of their shoes because you're hit with such impact is mind-blowing.
To me, it brings the question of how fast was he going?
So that's a very good question. I don't think that's a question we're ever going to truly know. I don't think that's an answer that we're ever going to 100% know. So there's been, let me start by saying this. When he hit us, he did not slam on his brakes. Okay. He came to a rolling stop, which to me is very awkward. If you hit something going at a higher rate of speed, you hit anything, your first instinct is to slam on the brakes. Okay. He hit us, he came to a rolling stop. And because of this, because there was no rapid deceleration, there's a recorder in the truck that would capture all critical information, either based on an impact or a high rate of deceleration. And I guess Katie didn't register on the sensors as a high rate of impact. Her head caved in the left side of the hood, but I'm not sure where the sensors are, so it didn't pick up any impact, nor did it pick up any rapid deceleration because he came to a rolling stop. That being said, there were no tire marks for any type of investigation to take place to see, if he slammed on his brakes here, then there's a calculation that they have that can tell you approximately about how fast they were going based upon where that truck stopped. Cory moved his truck before the DPS arrived on scene because there was an ambulance coming and a fire truck. I believe that was the reason. And then the pictures that day that were taken by Corporal Tarif Al-Khatib, it was his investigation, were very subpar. We've heard that from the district attorney's office, and I mean that's what the prosecutors told me. Other law enforcement have seen the photos and said that's crazy. There should have been dozens more. In fact, the DA's office relied on us to provide them with photographs that our family took the day after. That's how horrible the investigation was. Due to Cory Foster's actions and the inactions of the investigating officers, we'll never know how fast Cory was truly going, but there were estimates that he was going somewhere between, I believe it was 34 and 44 miles per hour, which, I mean, is a big range. The posted speed limit's 30.
And that's not the only thing that the investigating officers or the responding officers failed to do, because as I've seen, he was given a breathalyzer. He blew 0.06 and the limit is 0.08, but he was never given a blood alcohol test to confirm what level he was at, correct?
You're absolutely correct. So he blew a 0.06 50 minutes after.
That's a very important distinction.
Yeah.
50 minutes after this incident, and I'm not going to call it an accident, 50 minutes after this incident where he killed Katie, he blew a 0.06. You tell me, again, the body metabolizes alcohol at a certain rate, 0.0167, 0.02, all depends on, the many different factors. But he was at or over, in my opinion, he was at or over a 0.08 when he crossed over the roadway and hit us. He was given field sobriety tests as well, but got some issues with those field sobriety tests. He was first given, and I'm trying to remember, he was given the walk and turn test. We were told that he passed that. Then he was given a horizontal gaze test, which, it's where the officer puts her finger in front and then, you have to follow that. And now what that does is that's a test that you can't cheat on, right? That looks for involuntary eye movement. Cory blew a 0.06 in a PBT, okay, portable breathalyzer test. Everything that I've looked up on the internet state that he should at least have 2, 3, 4 clues at a 0.06. The body camera footage doesn't show Cory's eyes, but Tarif Al-Khatib that day said that he had 0 clues, which scientifically, if you look it up, that's impossible. He should have had some clues based on a 0.06 PBT score. Then he did the one-legged stand. He was shaking so bad on that one-legged stand, trying to make sure that his arms weren't raised up for balance, which I believe is a clue. He was shaking so bad, didn't make it to the count of 30, and then collapsed over onto his other foot and started laughing and was saying that he had his work boots on and the work boots weren't level. And that's why he was having a hard time and had to put his foot down.
One of the things we also have uncovered about the incident is the fact that one of the responding officers knows Cory. And I don't know if he was the one handling those tests that you were just describing, but it is noted that he said he could smell alcohol on Cory's breath. I mean, and that's not being disputed, right? He clearly blew a .06 an hour after. He can't stand on one leg. It's incredible to know that there's this person who knows Cory and didn't recuse himself from the situation and put someone else there in order to answer questions and ask questions without being biased.
Well, that officer was indeed Sharif Al-Khatib. Was the officer that was in charge of the investigation. After Katie was killed, we came across pictures of Cory Foster and his wife and Sharif Al-Khatib and his wife at a party together on Halloween. I believe it appeared the wives met up earlier, got matching outfits, did matching makeup. There was one picture where, it appears that Sharif Al-Khatib's wife is almost sitting in Cory Foster's lap. And then we came across pictures of them at a Christmas party too, arm in arm. Sharif knew Cory. Absolutely. The wives worked together. Sharif even stated after everybody had left, the body camera was still recording. And in the footage, and I'm paraphrasing, he says something of the sort like, yeah, when I walked up and saw it was him, I was like, yeah, he's probably drunk. And so you've got this state trooper, and his only job that day was to gather evidence. And in my opinion, he did everything he could to make sure that Cory Foster got a ride home. Another trooper even asked Sharif Al-Khatib, "We're getting blood, right?" Because I guess to everybody else, it was very apparent that, again, it's by the time DPS was there, it was 8:15, 8:30, and from 3, 4, 5 feet away, they could smell the alcohol on his breath. Okay, you've crossed over the roadway, crossed over to the opposite side of the road, and as we were walking alongside the road, hit us. You've got one person that's going to the ICU and another person that's being put into a medical evac helicopter to be sent to a trauma center in Plano. Okay. All that being said, everybody knew that there should have been a blood test, even the other trooper with Sharif, and asked him, and it's all on body camera footage, and we've released all that. Asked him. And Sharif's only response to that was, no, all that, referring to the alcohol, was from last night.
Which makes me wonder, were they together last night, the night before?
It's nonsensical. Sharif asked Cory numerous times, how much have you had to drink? Cory's answer changed every single time. He, 4 or 5 whiskeys. Heck, I don't know. That's what his response was. When did you stop drinking? It went from 7 to 8 to 9 to I don't know. And it's frustrating to go back and watch that footage over and over because it is so blatant and it's so obvious. Had it been another trooper on scene, I'm very confident that had that been any other trooper on scene, instead of loading Cory Foster up in a DPS cruiser and driving him home, which is what Al-Khatib did, they would have loaded him up and probably taken him to the same hospital I was at for a blood test.
One of the things I'm wondering is, where was Cory while you guys were waiting for the ambulance to arrive? You made a comment that he made the comment, I didn't know that was you, which is, like you said, a very odd remark to make, because it doesn't matter if it was me or not.
I was very focused on Katie.
Okay.
Cory tried to hand me my phone, which was bent. I mean, the impact was so hard, and I still got that phone. The top of it was curved. We were hit with such an impact. Phone was shattered, and it was curved. He tried to give me my phone to make a call. Again, looking at the phone, that seemed very peculiar behavior for somebody to hand somebody else a phone that is demolished. Then at another point, he tried to hand me a bottle of water. And I'm laying on my side trying to get my wife to blink. Very odd behavior. And I believe it was odd behavior because I believe that he wasn't in the right state of mind. Whether that be from the alcohol that state trooper smelled on his breath or anything else that he introduced into his body the night before, which was 420. But again, we won't know that because DPS failed at getting a blood test. That field sobriety test that they did, that doesn't test for, to my knowledge, that doesn't test for illicit drugs. I don't believe there is a field sobriety test that can test you for illicit drugs. And from what I've been told, you have to be specially trained in order to administer any type of test like that for other substances that could impair driving. And to my knowledge, Sharif Al-Khatib was not certified in that.
And even if he had been certified, it's not like he was doing his job to the full capacity that he should have been doing.
I don't believe it would have mattered. I believe that he probably still would have loaded Cory up in his cruiser and driven him home. And just a complete failure, just an absolute failure on DPS's part.
So you had mentioned that you were taken to separate hospitals. You were taken to a local hospital while Katie was flown to Plano. If you're comfortable, do you mind talking about the injuries that you sustained? Because you are a victim to this incident as well.
Yes, ma'am. I suffered broken ribs, fractured vertebrae, and some internal bruising of organs. I was taken to Texoma Medical Center in Denison, so same town. And I was in the ICU and remember on the ambulance ride there asking the paramedics that were stabilizing me, getting me to the hospital, just, hey, she wasn't blinking. Is that okay? Is that a sign for something? Do you think everything's going to be fine? They were very good at what they did. They of course didn't have any answers. They were very calming, very, very professional, got me to the hospital. I was asking everybody, I was saying, hey, she wasn't blinking. Is that a bad sign? I mean, I knew it was a bad sign. I'm just trying to get any kind of, affirmation from anybody that she was going to be okay. And then I started to ask about my kids. And even when I was on scene, I asked that neighbor, they were trying to see if there was somebody that they could call, and it was going to be Katie's mom. And for the life of me, could not remember her number. The neighbor's son knew my brother-in-law, who works at the same company, and that's how they were able to get a hold of Rhonda. So I was in the hospital asking about Katie. There was a citizen police officer that I guess was on shift at the hospital, at the ICU. And great guy. It was COVID. So visitation was very restricted. He told me that anybody comes up that's family, he would escort him up. That no issues at all. Waiting for any kind of confirmation about Katie. I think word finally got back to me that, the kids were fine. And just to give you guys a little background of what was going on with DPS when I was asking about my kids, the Grayson County Sheriff's Office had asked DPS to go do a welfare check on my kids. And the dash cam footage shows, I believe it was Jack Hill was a trooper, his dash cam. He radioed Sharif Al-Khatib to go by and check on my kids. And I'm going to use some profane language, and I apologize about this. Sharif's response was, they probably won't even come to the door. So that's that's what had we not been able to get a hold of Rhonda, had somebody not been able to get a hold of Rhonda, DPS not only failed on scene, but also failed after in promoting any type of professionalism or service whatsoever from that single statement. But that single statement sums up what type of man and what type of officer Sharif Al-Khatib is. Going back to the hospital, and I'd also like to say that the service resource officer where Katie worked at Scott Middle School, he obviously was not at the school since there was COVID. I believe he was performing other duties with Denison Police Department. He broke off of what he was doing and went to our house to go try and find our kids.
Sounds like he really humanized what was going on.
Well, that it's frustrating, and it's frustrating to me because I just gave you two examples of officers that are the epitome of what being an officer is. When we needed law enforcement that day, for some reason, we got the worst example of it. But those two officers, the SRO at Katie School and the Denison police officer that was working at the hospital, can't say more than enough positive things. I just wish we had officers that were cut from that cloth on scene that day instead of the hand that we were dealt when Sharif Al-Khatib showed up. That still to this day gets me emotional speaking about that, because Sharif Al-Khatib, in my opinion, is not a true representation of law enforcement. It's those two officers, it's the other two officers, and the other two interactions we had that day. And I'm very, very thankful to both of those men. Moving back to the hospital, so I was waiting, and I got a phone call from a family member, and there was information going back and forth that day because again, she was all the way in Plano, which is 40, 50 miles away. Family's going down there to go see her. No one knows what's going on. No one knows. Everybody knew the severity of Katie's injuries just for the simple fact that she was put in a medical evac helicopter and care flighted to a trauma center. She was non-responsive. She wasn't blinking. They were hand pumping oxygen into her. So she was having a hard time breathing on her own, or wasn't breathing on her own. I was waiting, and I got a call, and that family member told me that everything was going to be fine. They had done scans and everything was going to be fine. And just a sudden relief hit. I mean, that's all. That's all I wanted to hear. Got a call back. The same family member, I don't know, an hour or two later. And it was a phone call that I'll never forget.
There's so much freaking noise out there about the best ways to take care of yourself, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. That's why I am so thankful that I discovered Ritual way back in 2018 after my sister turned me on to them. For me, I take their 18 Plus multivitamin as well as their probiotic, but they do also offer tailored nutrient support for key phases of pregnancy, all the way from fertility to essential prenatal and postnatal multis. I continue to choose Ritual and have since 2018 because of the way the products made me feel immediately. But before that, I pushed that order button because I was able to go on the website and see exactly where they source their ingredients from. The transparency was a really big deal for me. I also really love how easy these vitamins are to take. Each capsule features this really cool delayed release design that makes it super gentle on an empty stomach. So yes, you don't have to make sure that you have something in your stomach or not when you take a Ritual vitamin. And trust me, I've taken them both ways, so I can attest. Ritual is also third-party tested and Clean Label Project certified, so you can trust it. I'm also super excited because I just got my first FSA card, and Ritual is FSA eligible, so I will definitely be looking forward to spending my pre-tax dollars on my Ritual vitamins. When it comes to pregnancy and postpartum support, you want products backed by research and transparency. Mom Founded Ritual puts in the work and shows you the proof. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/diaries. That's ritual.com/diaries for 25% off your first month.
a family member that called. He was a strong man, one of the strongest men that I know. And on the other end of that line, just raw emotion, bawling, and told me that guess there had been some misinformation. I believe the information he got was from somebody that said that I was going to be fine. He told me that Katie was not, that there was nothing that they could do for her, and that she was not going to make it. And he just kept on apologizing. And you hear something like that where you didn't know what her condition was, and then you hear that she's fine, she's going to make it, to that's not the case. To say that there was a roller coaster of emotions that day would be just a understatement. It went from uncertainty to she's going to be fine to this person that you love, who was your soulmate, you started a family with, she's gone. And that's it. There's no goodbye. There's no warning. All we did was go for a walk. That's it. So I heard that, and then man, I was numb. I remember my brother-in-law's ex-wife was the first one that showed up, and I mean, she'll always and forever be a sister to me. The cop escorted her up, and man, I think we just cried for, I don't know, forever. So the family had gone to say goodbye to Katie. One of Katie's brothers had dropped off his phone at the hospital. My kids were down there, and they were FaceTiming me. And seeing Katie that day, right after she was hit, was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to witness. But then seeing my kids on FaceTime saying goodbye to their mom, and I couldn't even be there, that was hard. Her brothers brought the kids to the hospital, and obviously that was very, very emotional. I don't know what you say to your kids after they were woke up by their grandma stating that your mom and dad were just hit by a truck. I don't know what's going on. We need to go. That's how my kids woke up that day. And then they ended that day by seeing their dad in the ICU after they had just come from their mom's bedside to say goodbye. And that day ended. I was called roughly at 1 a.m. the next morning by a doctor. I'm assuming it was a doctor called and said that they had performed a test on Katie, and they couldn't have done it before because I don't believe there's anybody there that could have performed that test. But the proper person had showed up, had performed a test, and did say that she was brain dead. Got that call, and didn't seem real at all. Someone tells you that, but you always think that you're going to get a phone call like I did before, but in the opposite, that hey, she's fine. Something happened, and her heartbeat's going up. She's getting movement in her eyes. So they wanted me to stay a couple more days in the hospital. I couldn't. I wanted to be released. I had to go be with my kids, and I had to go see her. I was released. I went to go see kids and family, and then Katie's stepdad drove me down to where she was. Saw her. Your brain knows, right? I could see her, and could see the fog in her eyes. She was on machines that were helping her stay alive, and brain knew she was gone. Heart didn't. So said goodbye to her. And we started it was just a new period in our lives, me and Bella and Brandon.
Once Katie passed, of course, that meant a ton of hardship and changes for you guys and, Bella, Brandon, and yourself. What did it mean after Katie passed for the investigation?
So after Katie was killed, we had reached out to the DA's office to see. I had been in contact a couple times with Sharif. That's when I found out that there was no blood test. And he told me that, again, I should be thankful there was no blood test, because if they had gotten a blood test, then that blood test would have been a lot lower than the breathalyzer. I didn't know then what I know now. So I didn't know that a breathalyzer was not admissible in criminal court. And then I wasn't aware of extrapolation when it comes to blood. When somebody gets a baseline, blood reading of their content of alcohol, then somebody can go back and say, well, if at 1 p.m. he was at a 0.03 based on weight, based on what he ate, they can bring it back, and that's court admissible. Didn't know any of that. So I didn't know how important a blood test was. I just knew that there was not a blood test, and I would soon find out that was going to be a major hindrance to us having our questions answered and for there being any type of justice at all for Katie Palmer. We reached out to the DA's office, asked for an update on the case. I had spoke to Brett Smith, who was the district attorney, still is, and he informed me that he was aware of the case, but hadn't received the file on it. So I would probably know more information that he did at that time, which is fair. So I said, that's got it. Okay. A couple weeks had passed, hadn't heard anything at all. Nothing. Katie's mom called the district attorney's office, couldn't get a hold of Brett. Brett was out on leave. There was a number on a Facebook page that Rhonda had obtained. She called that number, and turns out it was Brett's personal cell phone number. Well, if you don't want the public to call you as an elected official, don't put your cell phone number out there on social media. Okay. I think he's learned that lesson now. And so she reached out to him, and he was very angry that she called him. He told her that you're never to call an elected official on their private number. He didn't know anything about the case, didn't know anything about Katie, and to not call him again. That's our elected DA. Okay. So you could imagine if your daughter was killed in a month, 5 weeks passed, you didn't hear anything, and you talked to the one person that was going to be in charge of bringing justice for your child that was killed. That's how you're treated. I wonder how you would react. Well, Rhonda shared her story on social media, and people were outraged, as they should have been, rightfully so, right? And so there was anger and dismay from our community on how Rhonda was talked to. And so I get a phone call from Brett Smith, and I'm thinking, hey, great. The call wasn't about, hey, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry for your loss. I just got this file. I'm going to go ahead and review it, and we're going to be in contact with you. He was angry at how his image was being portrayed on social media. That's what we talked about in that phone conversation. And then he called me again a week or two later and complained to me again on how he's being portrayed on social media. So I believe 2 out of the first 3 interactions I had with Brett Smith, he was worried about his reputation on social media.
When he made these phone calls, what was his intention? Was he wanting you to do damage control on his behalf?
Yes. I told him that, I mean, it's all public, like, I don't really know what you want me to do. And, his response, and again, I'm paraphrasing, is that, that I could step in. I could step in and make sure that, his image wasn't tarnished anymore. Okay. And he kept on saying that it was unfair, which to me was a slap in my face. Don't talk to me about what fair is at all. Okay. So we finally have an in-person meeting with Brett Smith, which ironically enough was exactly today, 3 years ago.
I saw that Facebook post this morning. He made a very horrible comment to you that has since been posted on social media so that people can see the character of the person that they elected supposed to help the community.
You are exactly right. So today, 3 years ago, Katie's mom, Rhonda, Katie's dad, Tony, one of Katie's siblings, Logan, and me, we had a meeting with Brett Smith, and there were two other prosecutors there that accompanied Brett. And started out the meeting. I wanted to introduce Katie. Okay, if we're going to be talking about Katie, I want to introduce her. I had these pictures printed off at CVS, 8.5 by 11, of different times in Katie's life. One was with, her brother and sister. One was at her brother's wedding. One was with the kids. One was our wedding day. One was with mom. One was with dad. And if you're going to take this seriously, you need to know my wife. Okay. So Don Hoover and Laura Wheeler were the other prosecutors there. I was passed out a picture. I talk about the picture. And then when those were being circulated around, got to Brett, he refused to touch them, said that he's seen it already on social media. Now, I mean, this is 6 weeks after, and this is already how we're being treated. Okay. Wouldn't look at the pictures, was almost like like an angry child. Everybody was sitting at the table and he had his arms crossed and he was leaning up against the wall. So he was very disengaged.
He's also just proving the point that everyone's been saying about him. He wants them to be called off, but he's acting the way that he's been described publicly.
Absolutely. And as soon as we got through with the pictures, when it was Brett's turn to talk, Brett looked at Rhonda and went after her again about the social media posts. Made the comment that he did not like our civil attorney, which has no bearing on a criminal case at all. So it was just anger on how he was being treated, on how he's being portrayed. Very juvenile and very narcissistic to make this meeting about him. But again, we all know who he is now. Back then, didn't know, but his actions, actions speak louder than words. Okay. The way Brett acted just proves the fact that he is the man that we now know and thought that he was. And so after Brett was done, there was talks about, he made the statement that missteps were made by DPS and said that he had no clue why there wasn't a blood test, that there should have been a blood test. This is our elected state attorney that serves our county is calling into question how DPS handled this case 6 weeks after. This is he talked about how there was a poor investigation, that missteps were made. He talked about the pictures and just kind of threw his hands up like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Like they did such a bad job. Okay. And then when tensions somewhat settled down from it being a accusatory back and forth, Brett looked at Rhonda and made a statement, almost a half-hearted joke for her to call off her jihad against him. And that fell about as flat as anything could ever fall. Brett let out a laugh and the other two prosecutors were stone-faced. And we didn't know how to take that. Meeting ended after, and very pessimistic on how it was going to go. I went from optimistic that we were going to have a meeting to very pessimistic on, this is who's supposed to be promoting justice in Grayson County. And it seems like he wants nothing to do with it, nothing to do with our case, nothing to do with getting justice for Katie.
I'd like to state for the podcast and for you that all of this ego and all of this fighting and that comment that was said that I won't even repeat is gross and racist, and also just shows like the lack of care for all of her loved ones, and all of that ego was put before Katie and justice for her.
No empathy at all. And no one forced Brett to be DA. This is something that he went out and campaigned for. And he's just proven with every step and every statement that he's made that he is unfit. Absolutely unfit. So first Assistant District Attorney Carrie Ashmore was assigned to this case. I met with Ashmore, I don't know, approximately two or three times, had phone conversations with him. This went to grand jury on August 19th. Okay. They were in there for a couple hours. Sharif Al-Khatib testified. Somebody from the third party that recreated the crash, since DPS would not do it, which is another question that's never been answered. DPS, that's their sole responsibility, is to gather evidence, and they're supposed to be the experts on auto fatalities. They did not recreate the crash, so the county hired a third-party expert. They recreated the scene in the crash. When we talked earlier about speed, that's how that number came out, because they had a third party come out and do some due diligence. And then I testified also. I remember sitting out there with Katie's brother, Logan, and we were waiting. And grand jury filed out, and then Carrie Ashmore comes up and says, they got no build. No build means that the jury did not vote to indict Cory Foster on criminally negligent homicide. In my opinion, there are many reasons behind this. So, grand jury in Texas can consist of 12 jurors. That day, we only had 10. In order to get a vote to indict, you have to have 9. So it went from 9 out of 12 to 9 out of 10. I asked Ashmore where the other 2 were. Don't you have alternates? He shrugged his shoulders and said he didn't know where they were at. Okay. In addition, that third party that recreated the crash, the grand jury was held on the 19th. That report wasn't finalized until the 25th. So the jury didn't have the report in front of them. That report, which we've published numerous times, was very damning towards Cory Foster. Very, very damning. And the jury did not have that.
That's not the only thing the jury didn't have, though, because from what I've seen is they didn't get all of the body cam footage. Is that correct?
You are correct. So a lot of that body camera footage was not released. I've probably submitted over 30 FOIA requests to Grayson County on this case and other cases. And I had to submit this to DPS to finally get all the body camera footage, where we got, the clip of Tarif stating that, when he walked up and saw us Foster, I knew this guy was probably drunk. The statement about the kids probably won't come to the effing door. All that was previously not released. Now, something else the grand jury didn't have were phone records. Okay. Prior to this grand jury, Ashmore and Smith told me that they would get Cory's phone records to see if he was on the phone. Now, DPS should have looked at his phone on scene to see if there's any distracted driving. Again, failed to do so, which just bolsters my belief that Tarif was just trying to get Cory out of there and didn't do his job properly, didn't do a proper investigation at all. They said they were going to get the phone records and didn't. After the grand jury, they said that they would still request the phone records. Never did. It was only through our civil discovery process did we get these phone records. And these phone records, in the timeline that we put together and what makes sense to us, is that so from Cory Foster's mailbox to point of impact, going 33 miles per hour is approximately roughly, I want to say, if I remember correctly, and I put this on Facebook as well, it's 38 seconds. Okay. If you're going 33 miles per hour. Cory Foster, right around the time of impact, there was a call placed to a 903 number, which is our area code. So there was a call placed, and if I'm off on these seconds, I apologize. Believe it rang for approximately 21 seconds, and then it went to a voicemail, and then it hung up. Then the call was disconnected, and then 2 seconds later, 911 was called. Okay, so that leads us to believe that, again, because Cory said he couldn't see out of his windshield in the first place because it was too foggy, but it was also sunny. So it was so foggy he couldn't see, but the sun was also in his eyes, which makes perfect sense, right? I mean, I don't think I've ever read a story where somebody said on this very foggy, sunny day, right? Because those two things can't happen at the same time. So it was either the fog or the sun was not allowing him to see out of his windshield. He drove blind, okay, for 38 seconds. He was impaired because of the alcohol that he had, and we know this because he blew a .06 50 minutes later. And he also was dialing a number. So he was visually distracted, visually impaired, and cognitively impaired as well. Dialed this 903 number, right? Hit us, came to a rolling stop, still had his phone in his hand because the phone was dialing, got out, saw that he hit us, heard me yelling for somebody to call the cops. He then made the statement, "Oh my God, John, I didn't know it was you. I'm sorry." He made a statement to DPS stating that as soon as he got out of the car and saw that he hit us, he immediately called 911. Okay. That's on the body camera footage. Cory had the phone in his hand, hit end, dialed 911, send. Jury didn't have that information either. We didn't get that until 18 months after the first grand jury. We sent it over to Grayson County. They looked at it, get a call from Kerry Ashmore on a Monday or Tuesday. I believe it was Monday at 4:30. And he stated that they're going to put these phone records back in front of another grand jury, and caught me off guard. It's like, okay, do I need to be there? Because it's a brand new grand jury. I figured that I'm going to testify. The expert's going to testify. Tree's going to be there. He said, no, we're just going to present these records. And if the jury wants to move forward, then we'll move forward. It wasn't such a shock. Phone call ended, and I processed it all. And something doesn't sound right. Why are you calling me at 4:30 the day before this is going to go to a grand jury? Tried to call back numerous times. He wouldn't answer. I had a cell phone. I was sending him text messages, and he was very short and said, basically, this is how it's going to go. Like just exactly what I told you. We're going to present these records, and it's going to go exactly how I said. And I ended that text thread by saying that if you're not going to have this represented to this grand jury, all of the evidence that we had prior, right? The expert testimony, my testimony, the trooper's testimony, plus the body camera footage that you didn't show, plus the new report that the first grand jury didn't see, plus the cell phone records. I would like this to be a full presentation, not just an abridged version of the first part where you're going to leave out facts and then just throw them phone records and not really explain it all. Wouldn't respond. I called up there, left a message for Brett Smith. Rhonda, Katie's mom, and I showed up that morning 7:45. I think the grand jury met till 9:30 or 8. We've watched the grand jury file in. We requested to speak to Cory and Brett. We went up there numerous times. We're told that they'd get to us as soon as they could. Next thing we know, Carrie Ashmore is walking out of the grand jury room, stating, "Well, now it's in the grand jury's hands." And we asked him, "Why wouldn't you let us in there? Why wouldn't you let us testify?" And he said, "We gave them all the information. If there's any information that they want or need, then they'll let us know." Well, they don't know what they don't know. And so there was some back and forth. He was in and out multiple times. And Rhonda made a statement to Carrie. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but Carrie Ashmore looked at her right in the eyes and said something to the effect of, "I don't have to explain myself to you. I'm damn good at what I do." And he walked back in. I stepped outside, made a phone call. I saw Carrie walk back out. He was talking with Rhonda, and Carrie told me that they're not going to move forward with this. Eileen Page, I had 18 months of emotion built up, and I let it all out on Carrie Ashmore. So much that the sheriff's office emptied out into the hallway. Everything I told that man, I meant that day. I still mean it today, and I'll mean it until the day I die. That man failed our family twice. He had every opportunity to right the wrong that was done on August 19th, 2020, and didn't. Yet again, Carrie Ashmore, Brett Smith, and the Grayson County District Attorney's Office failed our family. And we have been hypercritical of that office for 3 years now, and we are not going to stop. Brett Smith is up for election. He's going to hit the primaries in March of next year. There's another candidate that's going to announce their intention of running. We're going to fully support that candidate because we do not want what happened to us here in Grayson County to happen to another family. There is nothing that we can do to bring Katie back. We fought to get laws changed. We fought to bring awareness to other actions of elected officials here in Grayson County with our county judge, Bill Majors, who we started a grassroots campaign and got another county judge elected based off the fact that Bill has multiple DWIs, and 2 months before Katie was killed, actually was arrested for driving while intoxicated for the second time, where he had 3.5 times the legal limit. Again, 3.5 times the legal limit, crossed over 2 highways, hit a pole, and was arrested by Sherman PD and by DPS, all while he was playing phone tag with Brett Smith. I'm assuming to try to skirt this impending arrest.
Can you say again who had the 2 DUIs? I didn't catch the name.
Bill Majors. That was our county judge, and the county judge here in Texas is basically the mayor of the county. He's not an actual judge. As the head administrator of the county, Bill was a bad actor as far as he's got a very lengthy criminal history. He's been arrested that we know of 4 times for DWI. 2 months before Katie was killed, was arrested for his second, where again, like I stated, he was 3.5 times the legal limit. And we started a campaign. He lost. I mean, it was a landslide, like something like 67 to 33%. So the people here in Grayson County want change, voted for change when it came to the good old boy system. And Bill, Grayson County voted for change then. And I am very confident that they're going to vote for change in 2024. And we're going to get rid of Brett Smith and ensure that his actions will not harm another family.
That's amazing. I do want to touch on really quick. You had mentioned that you guys passed a law, and I want to emphasize how important this new law is passed with the help of your family. It requires any motorist in Texas who strikes a pedestrian to submit a blood alcohol test.
Yes, ma'am. So that is the spirit of the law, right? House Bill 558, which is Colton's law. So we had somebody reach out to us, and they told us that there was a bill that was going to be presented in front of the Texas House that would require that any motorist that hits a pedestrian and causes either serious bodily injury or death, that they shall submit to a blood test. Again, this is just closing a loophole and just making things better than we found them, right? We don't want another family to have nothing but questions when they should have answers. And that's what our family has gone through. So it was Michelle Carney and her family who, Michelle is an amazing woman. Her son, Colton Carney, was hit and killed by a motorist as he was walking to work. His truck had stalled, and it was very early in the morning, and he was walking up an on-ramp in order to walk to work. His dad was going to meet him at the truck. Colton just went ahead and started walking to work. It's a horrible story. And this motorist hit Colton and killed him immediately. And I believe the dad told me that he was driving to go help Colton, stuck in traffic because of the accident and didn't know why. Then obviously realized that it was because of the son. That's something that you never get past. So the officer in that case, the family had asked if there had been an alcohol test on this motorist, and the police responded by saying that, it was 7 a.m. No one's drunk at 7 a.m. That answer was obviously unacceptable. And so Michelle, who is a warrior, reached out to every single state representative at the time in Texas. That's about 155 plus or minus. And there was only one representative that got back with her, and that was Terry Meza, who is a true representative of all Texans. Michelle Carney was not in her district, but it didn't matter because this is a common sense law. The spirit of this law is common sense. And so Terry Meza sponsored this bill. My family and our community got involved. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many trips we made down to Austin. We even rented a bus and drove people down to Austin to help us lobby for this bill. I think I stepped foot at least once in every single representative's office, emailed them at least 2 or 3 times, and same thing with phone calls. And my family, our community, those with Justice for Katie Palmer, joined the Carney family and Representative Meza and got this bill passed in one session, which is not an easy task. And it was just barely, I remember, so you've got to have these laws, there's certain protocols that you have to go through. And we had a deadline of, I think it was the second reading for the bill. The bill had to be read for a second time on the House floor by third date. If not, all the bills that haven't been read a second time get cut out. And there was maybe like 35 pages of bills. I think we were on page 24. And so they started reading bills that day, and we thought, no way. We've come far. We've raised awareness. We've got the support. We're just gonna, it's probably gonna be next session. And they were gonna read all the way till midnight. And of course, there was debate going on. So one bill might take a minute. One bill might take 30 minutes. So it was just going. About 8 p.m., we were, 12 pages away. 10 p.m., we were 6 pages away. And 11:30, we were 2 pages away. And they started reading them faster. And our bill was read at like 11:57 and 45 seconds passed. And 3 other bills got passed, and they slammed the gavel. And so it was read, it was put to a vote shortly thereafter, moved to the Senate, and was passed. And it was great.
I literally have chills because I think this is the perfect example of why you're doing this, why you're on the podcast, why you are reaching out to anybody who will listen to Katie's story, right? We can do so much if we band together with a common goal. And so I think this is a perfect reminder to our listeners that we can make a difference in not only Katie's family's lives, but like other families' lives who show up on the Murder Diaries by just taking a second and sharing their story and talking to your representatives about something so important, like making sure every person who hits another person with their vehicle gets tested for their blood alcohol content.
Absolutely. And it was truly a community effort. I mean, it was not the actions of one person. It was Michelle Carney that started it. Without her, there would not be a law. But then it was everybody else that came in and supported Michelle and made the phone calls and joined her fight that got this law passed. And it was amazing. And I remember getting a call or a text from Representative Meza, and then we got one from our representative in this area and our senator. We were actually on vacation, and I woke up that morning and hey, it was signed. It was signed into law, and excellent feeling to know that this might help somebody. Again, we're not going to be able to eliminate drinking and driving. Unfortunately, it's something that I think is always going to be around, but it'll stop somebody from getting away with taking somebody else's loved one or hurting somebody. And it's going to save some families some anguish and pain that otherwise wouldn't be there if it weren't for the actions of a motorist that gets behind the wheel of a vehicle and shouldn't be driving. That is a cognitive decision that you make. And I firmly believe that everybody's actions have consequences, and you need to be held responsible and you need to be held accountable. I think that's what our fight's been about.
Absolutely. And I think this is the perfect segue to tell our listeners where they can help support you, even from social media. Where can they find you on Facebook, on Instagram? Let them know.
Absolutely. So on Facebook, we have a group, Justice for Katie Palmer. I would encourage anybody to join that, please. We post on there constantly. There's a Twitter account at @4_Palmer. And then I've also got a Twitter account at Palmer John David. And Facebook is probably the best way to get any information on our case, our fight, what we're doing, and how anybody can help.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
And real quick, I again just want to tell you guys, thank you so much. You guys don't understand how important what you guys do. You just don't understand the importance of it. I don't have a platform, and I'm sure there's a lot of victims out there that don't have platforms to tell stories of those that we've lost or any kind of suffering that we've been through. You all have a platform, and the fact that you all constantly open it up to help victims is amazing. And you guys are doing great work. Please keep it going. Please keep it going.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Make sure you follow us on all of our socials at the Murder Diaries Pod. And until then, stay safe. Bye. There's so much freaking noise out there about the best ways to take care of yourself, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. That's why I am so thankful that I discovered Ritual way back in 2018 after my sister turned me on to them. For me, I take their 18 Plus multivitamin as well as their probiotic, but they do also offer tailored nutrient support for key phases of pregnancy, all the way from fertility to essential prenatal and postnatal multis. I continue to choose Ritual and have since 2018 because of the way the products made me feel immediately. But before that, I pushed that order button because I was able to go on the website and see exactly where they source their ingredients from. The transparency was a really big deal for me. I also really love how easy these vitamins are to take. Each capsule features this really cool delayed release design that makes it super gentle on an empty stomach. So yes, you don't have to make sure that you have something in your stomach or not when you take a Ritual vitamin. And trust me, I've taken them both ways, so I can attest. Ritual is also third-party tested and Clean Label Project certified, so you know you can trust it. I'm also super excited because I just got my first FSA card, and Ritual is FSA eligible, so I will definitely be looking forward to spending my pre-tax dollars on my Ritual vitamins. When it comes to pregnancy and postpartum support, you want products backed by research and transparency. Mom Founded Ritual puts in the work and shows you the proof. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/diaries. That's ritual.com/diaries for 25% off your first month.